Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by me, Bea, who's Customer Success Director at Wazuku, and my colleague, Abby Anderson, one of our sales engineers. Thanks for joining us today to find out a little bit more about how you can use Wazuku to innovate with your customers. We'll be here for about half an hour today and can hang on the line for a little bit longer if you have any specific questions that you want to raise about today's topic or want to have a chat more generally. So we'll just give people a minute, or 2 minutes past, just give people another minute to come in and then we'll get started. Abby, is my sound okay?
Yes, Bea, you sound perfect.
Okay, not perfect, but you can hear me, which is lovely. Just while we let people come in, if you do have any questions, please pop them in the questions bar just at the bottom right of your screen, or use the chat function. Lovely. Let's start by sharing my screen and I think we can get started. Abby, if you can just confirm when you can see my screen.
Of course, Bea. Yeah,
Okay.
can see it now.
Brilliant. Lovely. So for today, what we're going to do, if you're new to us, then we're going to just do a little bit of an introduction to Wazuku and how we help organizations crowdsource ideas and innovate both with employees or people within their organizations and also outside of it, and give you an introduction as to how you can use Wazuku to innovate with your customers. So give you a little bit of background as to what co-creation is. You probably heard the term bandied around quite a lot. What the benefits are to you and to your customers by co-creating products, services, concepts, and then just have a bit of a discussions of the do's and don'ts of co-creation. So for most organizations who haven't done it before, of course, there are questions. How does it differ? We haven't necessarily got an engaged audience. How do we go about building a crowd or a community? So we'll just have a little bit of a discussion around things that we've seen work well in the past, things that we would recommend you avoid doing. Also taking in some learnings. There's a great couple of articles that HBR have written about this, so I'll also share those with you in the chat so you can do some further reading. Abby is then going to show you or give you a demo on how you can co-create with customers using a co-creation community. So actually just some of the processes and some of the features we have to enable you to keep a crowd engaged. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end. Lovely. So Wazuku, so we work with organizations globally to be able to, or give them the capability to crowdsource ideas from internal, as I said, and external audiences, combining open innovation and idea management. So we are a platform provider and we also provide services helping organizations to make this a sustainable and repeatable process, not just do it as ad hoc events, really ensuring that they can tap into the collective intelligence of their crowds, both within and outside the organization, to come up with those ideas, to find important problems to solve and come up with viable solutions. So we run on a methodology called challenge-driven innovation. So rather than just having a open-ended platform whereby people could come and just suggest any idea, this is about finding important problems for your business, running those as crowdsourcing challenges to ensure that you get the greatest chances of success. And again, think about embedding this as a repeatable and sustainable process. So underpinning our technology is metrics, reporting, everything you need to know to ensure that you can make this process better over time. So you're improving it, making sure that incrementally you're changing things as well as working on that bigger ticket innovation. And most importantly, making it engaging and able to be used by people anywhere. So whether it's someone who is in a call center, someone who is working remotely, whether it's someone who actually has no signal to Wi-Fi whatsoever, what want to be able to do is have a single place where people can come and respond to business challenges and come up with solutions. So just a little bit more about challenge-driven innovation. So as I mentioned there, this is about formulating problems and business needs into a portable unit of work. So what we think of as a challenge, and exposing them to new audiences, both inside your organization and outside of it simultaneously. So it's taking that process and ensuring that this is repeatable and scalable, and that most importantly, your organization is going about innovating in a similar fashion. So one of the things that we often see is when we ask organizations at the start, what's innovation mean to you? You get a very different answer according to who you're speaking to in the room. And the practice of innovation is very different. So what we're trying to do is ensure that there's a process which is commonly understood and is going to drive a high success rate. And taking some of the principles of both open innovation, so that's going out to find new solutions, as well as crowdsourcing and peer review. So really taking how can we capture ideas, but then actually what role can the crowd play in both reviewing those ideas and helping to develop them. In terms of the power of this approach versus, I say, going out with a very, very broad spectrum, is first and foremost allowing you to source solutions or novel solutions from unexpected fields of people. What we tend to do is go out and ask for ideas from people we have an immediate relationship with. And actually, that solution or that idea might exist in an area where you don't typically go to, people you don't typically come across day to day. So it's all about ensuring that you can capitalize on that knowledge, that expertise, and in doing so, maximize return on investment and reduce risk. Why we say this and why particular to challenges is if you've got a specific problem that you're trying to solve, there's the right backing, there's the right funding behind it, that's going to increase your chances of getting ideas and solutions through at the final end. So what is potentially quite a high risk process and that we don't know if an idea is going to work, if we're able to center it around a particular business problem, then we are reducing that risk. It's a new approach, and it's a new approach to discover new ways to get or to handle difficult problems. And in doing so, build out communities of research, both to promote a cause. So this isn't just about solving problems, it's also about thought leadership. It's about positioning your brand and solving a problem while simultaneously creating awareness. So that's just a little bit more about challenges, and we're always open to talk about our approach and how you can run effective challenges. So the topic of today's webinar, co-creation. When we're talking about co-creation, we're talking first and foremost about a collaborative process to develop new forms of value. And that value can take many forms. It's either the fully formed solutions that we might want to co-create with another audience, or it might just be concepts. So what things are we thinking about doing in the future, and how can we leverage as many stakeholders as possible in that process? What it's doing is, rather than the inside out approach, whereby we go through a typical market research exercise, we've got an idea that we want to be able to validate as a new service, a new proposition. What we want to do is make that process, which is quite linear, continuously dynamic. So that's bringing the outside in at all elements of the process, and in doing so, allowing you to tap into the creativity of both existing and potential customers. So this isn't just about co-creating solutions, as I say, with your internal audience, as people who already work with you. This is around a new way to create services with potential customers as well as existing customers. And in terms of where it comes from, so you've probably, as I say, heard it banded around a lot. It's not anything new. It's been talked about sort of certainly for the last 30 years, and it really started with a number of companies who were looking to really involve their customers as much as possible in the product development process. Now, in spite of the fact that it was coined in the late 90s, of course, it's been going a lot longer than that. That organizations and even anyone who's developed a product has often involved the customer. But this was really about formalizing it and not just saying, as I say, that we're going to do a market research, then do some user testing. It was how can we co-create those solutions and formalize our approach. So why do it? So there are benefits for you as an organization. Firstly, similar to engaging a different crowd in helping you to solve a problem, we're trying to do, and one of the benefits of co-creation is actually reducing the time it takes to get to market. So whether that's a new product or service, it's allowing you to iteratively get that out as quickly as possible because you're in a continuous user feedback loop. One of the other benefits, of course, is that there is a lot of creativity and knowledge in your existing customers or customers altogether, and you can really enhance that and build on that by bringing customers into your journey, and in doing so really build up some loyalty. So as well as being able to maximize what we think of the lifetime value by bringing your customers into that process, you can build the opportunity to improve those customer relations and drive more customer loyalty, so they become part of the process of designing your product services rather than just the buyer of it at the end. But most importantly is to why co-creation, and whether you're thinking about getting started, is I can guarantee that a lot of your competitors already are, just based on the research that we've done. There is a lot to suggest that this approach is now being brought into product and service development processes. So rather than being again catching up, we want you to ensure that you can compete and you can use this co-creation to do so. So now and that's a little bit of background as to what it is, some of the benefits for you as an organization, but this is really an opportunity for us to share some, and also if you'd like to share some thoughts from yourselves as to what to do and what to avoid. But first recommendation to customers who are embarking upon co-creation is to keep an open mind about who your co-creators are. So I've linked to an article here which goes into a little bit more detail about some of the points raised. But one thing that I've seen can happen is people have a very, very specific idea of who's going to, or which with their customer base is going to come up with the next new product or service. And typically people go straight to the most vocal, the most engaged customers. And actually, it's often the naysayers, the people that you're finding difficult to sell to, who might be a really valuable asset in that process. So ensure as much as possible that you are engaging as broad and a diverse community as possible. Another do is build a strong community who collaborate together. So often when you think of co-creation, it can be perceived as an isolated activity where you bring in a small group of customers and you look at a specific part of the process. And actually the co-creation doesn't just extend to you and the customer, it extends to the customers themselves working together. So what you can choose to do, or we encourage you to do as much as possible, is to truly incentivize that collaboration, get people to build on other people's ideas. So this isn't just come in, deliver your idea and leave. It goes, here are other ideas which have been shared by the community. How can we work together to be able to further develop them?
Yeah, I think we see that really well, B, when platforms are not just running challenges to capture ideas to be implemented, but are also sharing best practice and are sharing other valuable content with their users. For example, with Worcester County Council, who are a council here in the UK, they share top tips to startups in their local area as to how to build out their tax returns, or how they can innovate more freely, or who they can involve in the development of their ideas. And that allows the startups to come to the platform not just to add their ideas, but to collaborate, build out, vote, build out those ideas of other people, and to take away some of that meaningful content. So that can then start to help you to build that stronger community, as people have a secondary reason to come and engage with your network. And one of the platforms that we'll look at today is a good example of that.
Lovely. Yeah, I think you're right there, is around creating those best practices to be able to ensure that people work together, as well as you again coming up with another incentive. And I think that in that particular example, um, with Win, one other thing is around ensuring that it's not just the people from, or you as the challenge owner, who is involved in that co-creation. Really good thing about it is if you can bring in your salespeople, you can bring in marketing, you can even bring in finance, is it not just to be an isolated with a product team and a specific customer, because there's real insights to be learned, even if it's in the context of product development, around your customers, how they work, what their sentiments are towards you as a brand, that can be learned. So I'd recommend it's not just, as I say, another isolated process, but actually involve as many stakeholders from your own organization in that process as possible.
Yeah, that's something that we've done as well here with the Connect community B
Mm,
by bringing involved the support team and getting it access for support to be able to showcase what they've been deploying as well as the product team. I think it's
yeah.
all about making sure your co-creation community has got as much content for people to engage in as possible, and also for them to have different reasons to engage. And different stakeholders often pose different perspectives on the co-creation community, which from an
Mm,
end user's perspective then gives them more than one reason to want to come there because they have different things that they would want to see and interact with.
yeah. Interesting. So what are other, so I've listed 3 do's there from what I've seen, Abby. What else would you recommend as a do when people are embarking on co-creation?
I really can't advocate enough for being as open and as simple as possible.
Hmm.
I I think when I've been building out these communities with customers in the past, the worst thing that you can do is lock things down for different sectors. At the end of the day, you don't know who has what knowledge. You don't know what they've been doing in a past life. You don't know what they've been doing in their previous job roles. Like they all have valid input on what you're doing. And unless you have like reasonable confidentiality concerns, it's much more engaging for a crowd to be able to come in and see lots of content to get involved with.
Mm,
I think it's all about having multiple different things that they could want to engage with. As when we're running these internal campaigns, we always say those first couple of challenges that you run, you want to make sure the first time someone comes to the platform, they have something that they're interested in and something that they feel they can add to. And that's the same for a co-creation community and for your customers. So make sure there's like a diversity of opinion and make sure there's a diversity of things that they would want to interact with, would be my do.
yeah, fantastic. And I'm going to give you a 3 don'ts, and I see, Abby, if you agree, if you agree with me on them, because I would actually say, although, and this is a balance to be struck around ensuring that you're open-minded, you keep your community, is it's not all about the size of the community and creating as big a community as quickly as possible. So although you can ensure that there is as many people as possible, I've seen that it becomes a numbers game rather than a what is the value that that community is creating. So that balance between getting as many people to join, but not making that the absolute kind of number one KPI of your community.
Yeah, I think this depends on what kind of crowd you're trying to engage. As when
Mm,
we've seen audiences like, for example, like the Ministry of Defence, they have a couple of key suppliers, and those key suppliers would be the people that they would want to innovate with the most. And so to them, it's not really a numbers game because it's about getting into those key supplier relationships. Also, one of the examples I was going to show today was from Electricity Supply Board Ireland, ESB, and they have a
mm,
couple of key partners in their network. And if they can get access to those people and co-create solutions with them, then to them that's a massive success. I think it's a little bit different when you're looking at B2C organizations, if you're
yeah.
thinking about retailers, if you're thinking about people who need that diversity of the crowd,
Mhm.
tapping into one customer is less effective, I would say,
Sure.
to those people than for the people who are working more in the B2B key supplier, key account management organizations.
Mm, absolutely. I think, yeah, dependent on what the customer looks like, of course. I think that reservation comes from it being we need sort of 200,000 people, and actually it's all around how can you get the right, the right people and people who are willing to engage with you. Another thing that I'd advocate that organizations don't do too much is just continuously go back to the community for the same thing. So I've seen it that, and really I think this is where challenge driven innovation lends itself quite well, is you are going to be continuously facing new problems, and you'll be solving new problems for your customers as they arrive. So how can you ensure that it's a dynamic place, recognize that it takes energy and it takes work to keep these communities alive, but actually that you need to be able to put the effort into creating new, problem statements, new challenges, new campaigns, so it doesn't become tired.
Yeah, I think this is the same as we have internally as well, B. We discuss about having always on campaigns that are running in the background that people are aware
Mm,
are there, but then having sporadic bursts of time bound campaigns which are consistently changing. I think it does come back to my original point of people needing different things to interact with to be able to want to engage in the program. But that's not to say that you couldn't have an always-on challenge there in the background that people are used to, that they know they can interact with.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Abby. So without further ado, it'd be great to see just some example communities and show our customers.
Yeah, so I have 3 different ones to look at today. They're looking at different use cases for co-creation community. So first, looking at a process improvement co-creation community, our internal one, Connect, how we work with our customers to iteratively improve our product and get their feedback in our roadmap. Then looking at more into Horizon 2, Horizon Scanning Innovation, New Products and Services campaigns. So looking at WMHSN, the West Midlands Academic Health Science Network up in the UK, in the West Midlands, part of the NHS, and how they are able to drive new innovation through their co-creation community. As a third one, looking at innovating within an industry, looking at the Electricity Supply Board Ireland and how they're looking to drive sustainable change through their co-creation community. So
lovely. Thanks for that.
No problem.
I'll take my camera off.
You don't have to. You're welcome to stay. Can you see the Balbu, our Connect community?
Can do, yes. Thanks, Abby.
Perfect. So welcome to Balbu. For any of you who don't know how a co-creation community works, it sits as a side to your main platform. So your main platform is used to ideate with your internal employees, and usually it's shielded by single sign-on. An adjacent, but directly attached to that, can be a co-creation community, which provides you with a different login pathway to allowing people to access with email and password if they're externals and suppliers. Your main site remains shielded by SSO, no one can access, but you're able to seamlessly move ideas internally or externally for development dependent on what's required for your use case. So here in the Balbu platform, we run a couple of challenges. First, looking at people to share their problem or need with our current platform. So that's looking at collecting small process improvement ideas around how we can improve our platform. We are able to collect those ideas, and when people have any ideas that we are particularly interested in developing, we're then able to move them internally to our internal platform for development. So we can go through that development cycle internally, bring in the right stakeholders for evaluation. But at the same time, we're also able to have it on a public forum where we can gather more opinions from more people within the crowd, a diversity of customer opinion, building out whether or not this is the direction of travel for us. On top of that, we're also able to get continuous feedback into our roadmap. So by posing our roadmap externally, we're able to collect people's opinions on whether or not we're moving in the direction of travel that our customers want to. And we're also able to work iteratively, taking in that feedback and then coming back to the product team to maybe redesign or rescope dependent on what the crowd tells us. The final challenge in here is the one that I was just referring to, run by our support team. So our support team run Project Delight, which is a way of our customer experience team creating small platform improvements that have a big impact on our audience. So our audience is able to see what's coming up through here, and they're also able to contribute on anything that's coming up as to whether or not it's of importance to them. And we can prioritize which delight gets done in which order, dependent on the importance of it to the crowd. So that's how we use the platform internally for a process improvement use case. Now switching over to the West Midlands Academic Health Science Network, whose platform's called Meridian. So Meridian are looking to transform healthcare through innovation, bringing in exciting new innovations into the NHS. So they do this by running an external horizon scanning challenge where startups and entrepreneurs within their local area are able to come to Meridian and submit what they want to do, or what they're already working on, or what their startup is doing. They then follow this diligent process, as you can see in the platform, getting those innovations implemented into the NHS and reviewing whether or not they're of interest to the NHS. This is an interesting way of working, as you're going out to everybody in your local area and you're saying, tell us what innovations you're working on. The benefit of this is that you don't miss out on any key trends that are coming up that you might not be aware of, and also you're identifying local areas of innovation that you may not have been previously aware of, and they can then support those initiatives through the NHS in a similar way that we were talking about with Worcester County Council, supporting the growth of startups within your local community. The third one that we're looking at today is slightly different. It's the Electricity Supply Board Ireland. So the Electricity Supply Board Ireland is driving for a more sustainable future by bringing in digital advancements within their industry. So they're able to run challenges to a specific group of their partners run by their partner manager to collect ideas as to how them as an industry can iterate towards a more sustainable future. So people can come to their platform and add ideas for sustainable change. And it's the way of ESB showing their priorities to their partners, being clear on what their goals are, and also working towards their goals together in conjunction with their partners. You can also see here a good example of a homepage that's sharing a lot of content with their crowd, enabling them to have multiple different reasons as to why they want to interact with the company, and they can be really clear about what their direction of travel is. Okay, that's everything from me, B.
Lovely, thanks for that. And it was really good to see also, as well as great co-creation, is just good examples of good homepages and what people are really doing to advertise. I think one thing to consider, and probably going, that's all well and good if it's open, but what do we do if it's closed? So we do have a number of customers who run a kind of private community for might be a key customer. So this is typically, if this is business to business, it might be that one of you've got a particular contract that you run with a particular customer, and quite a good model for that really is innovation exchange whilst the contract is live. So it's more kind of in contract innovation exchange. So you as a supplier going to a customer, creating a community and saying, we're going to showcase things that we're doing to be able to prove to you that we're an innovative supplier. So that's actually quite an interesting use case, and I think lends to what we were saying earlier around how to use this to your competitive advantage. So actually being able to demonstrate that you're not just delivering a service, but actually you are continuously improving that. And when it comes to that wonderful time that we all love of the contract renewal, you actually have a really good prioritized list of what you've implemented and the value you've created, as well as bringing solutions to a particular customer. So there are lots of different ways you can do it. We've just touched on a couple today, but we're going to actually see if there's any questions.
Don't think there is any questions, B. But I was just going to say
I
that
think, oh, right, sorry.
that example is a great example of one where the size of the crowd isn't really what you're striving for. It's more on the quality of the people who are in the crowd and how much they're contributing towards your problem statements rather than the size of the audience.
Absolutely. Nobody's asked a question yet.
Nobody.
Usually we wait about 30 seconds. I'm going to ask a question, but I'm going to get your opinion on this.
Okay.
How do you incentivize? Let's take the example of, retail or something. It's what good incentives are there for customers to actually work with you and give you their ideas?
It is more difficult externally. Internally, we talk a lot about recognition, but that doesn't work so much with your customers. I do think financial incentives and prizes are more important externally if you're going to build the crowd, particularly initially. When framing up a problem statement, you should always be thinking along with what's in it for me and what's in it for the problem owner, what's in it for the idea creator. Why do they want to give you this idea? And the reality is, if you're going out to all of your customers of a retail campaign, you're probably going to have to incentivize them somehow, probably financially or with additional services or something that you offer. I don't know if you disagree on that, B.
Yeah, I think it's important to, I think, firstly ensure if it's to do with products, is that you've just managed any sort of IP upfront and that there is mutual benefits to it. But I think it's harder to do, and one thing that I have seen well is people bring together, you see often customer conferences and bringing together that community and actually making it a bit like, go to Vegas for a weekend. We can't all afford to fly all our customers to Vegas, but if you can make more of an event of it and make people feel part of an actual community, it's not just a sort of virtual online community, then I think that's a good way of incentivizing people as well.
I think that ties in well to what the Electricity Supply Board were doing as well, because that was run by one of their partner managers. And so that
Right.
person already had the existing relationships with the people who they wanted to invite to the community. And at that point, you're just looking at a different way of working. You're looking at a more collaborative way of bringing people together to ideate on common problems that you would have previously just been doing through an email chain. So for partner relationships, for people who are partner managers, people who are managing these relationships internally, I think you can incentivize it slightly differently, as it's just kind of a shift in the way that you're used to working with those people rather than it being a new task for them.
Yeah, lovely. Okay then, well, 30 minutes are up, so thanks everyone for participating. If you have any questions, just get in touch. Rob will be able to to leave a link or our email. And we look forward to seeing you next week, where we'll be looking at challenge planning part 2. So following on from last week's webinar. So thanks everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day and see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.